Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the second shelf and to a life update because I've been absent and February wrap up. It's March 3rd, Sunday. As you can see, I'm back in Cologne. I mean, you didn't know that I wasn't in Cologne, but I'm back in Cologne now. But just after the last video that I filmed, or one of my last videos, and I very proudly announced that I'm back on schedule, like 2 videos a week, Sunday and Wednesday. And of course, after that, I was absent for 2 weeks or something. You know, life happens when you're busy making other plans. In my case, it's my mom. She had an ugly fall 2 weeks ago. She already had surgery once. And she's almost 93, so, it's difficult, and she's not doing all that well. What that means is that I'm in Freiburg most of the time, where my mom lives, where she's now in hospital. I'm trying to balance work. I thank God we can do a lot of things digitally. But it's very time consuming, also mentally and emotionally consuming, as you can imagine. And I'm just trying to get back into things now because it helps me to, normalize my situation and my mom's situation a little bit. It keeps me from worrying all the time when I read a bit or when I talk to you and film a video. So I will try to do that, but my uploading schedule might be a bit erratic. I will do what I can, but hey, life happens. So I'm very sorry about that, but I know that I have the best viewers and subscribers, and you will understand priorities have to change at the moment. And as much as I love to talk to you, and as much as I love books, when my mom is not doing well, she obviously takes priority. So I just thought I explained that real quick. And for now, I will film today's video and pre-film Wednesday's video. So there will be 2 videos in a row, hopefully. And then we'll just take it from there, one day at a time, people, one day at a time. And this, my mom's accident also meant, of course, that I'm behind with certain things. So we will come to that in a minute. But first, the good news, the books that I finished. And the first book I want to talk to you about is this one, Madame de Lafayette, the Princess de Cleves, in a new translation by Terence Cave, translated from the French, and it was originally published in the 17th century, 16 something. You will find the correct date in the show notes. Madame de Lafayette was living at court in the 17th century, and this is a court novel. It's considered the start of what we now talk as novels, and it is on my 1001 books by women that I have to read, but it is also the February pick of Sandy's book club that I'm co-hosting this year. I'm so sorry, Sandy. I did not even open Discord in February, but hopefully things will quiet down one way or the other in the future. But at least I read the book. So if you're not, I will leave a list of all the books that Sandy and I picked for this year's book club. There are 10 books. There's no book in January and there's no book in August. So hence the February book was the first. And it's also the oldest book on our list. So this is the doomed love of the title character, the Princess de Cleves, who comes to court when she was very young, in her teens, and then marries a much older man. I mean, much older, that probably means he's in his early 30s when he marries her, the Prince de Cleves. It is an arranged marriage, not a forced marriage, but an arranged marriage, and she doesn't love him. He loves her. That's at least what we learn from the book, but she doesn't love him. Instead, of course, she falls in love with another man that she meets at court. I forgot the name of the man, but that's not really important. And then the book, not too big, explores this kind of conflict of emotions between duty to her husband and the love. The love, by the way, is from both sides. So it's not that she falls in love with another man and he doesn't love her. No, they both fall in love with each other. I'm not going to spoil how it will end, even though it's a classic, but it's not a classic, I think, that is featured that often, so you might not have read it. I will say, for me, it was more interesting to read about court life and treat this book almost as a historical document, because it is, in a sense, historical fiction, because even though Madame de Lafayette wrote it in the mid-17th century, it's set in a century earlier, during the reign of Henry VIII in England and Henry II in France. And we learn a lot about the machinations and shenanigans at court and court life. The story, the way the story is told, it's almost like an essay. So I didn't find it, if I say suspenseful, that's an odd word for, it's not a crime fiction, but I find it a bit boring to read in the sense, the way the story is presented. But I still think it's worth your while to learn about life of the aristocratic society during the 16th century in France, and how the preoccupation with, court drama and court alliances and arranged marriages and things like that. It gives a glimpse of how that life must have been. And for that, I really appreciate the book, but not so much for the actual story. And I find the way it was told not that engaging, the love story. But still, it is, a short book, and it's about 150 pages or something. So it's worth your while to just get to know for me at least, a completely different and unknown world. And again, sorry, Sandy, that I did not even engage in Discord once. The other book I finished was also for a kind of a readathon that is a year long, and that one is hosted by Karen from Encourages us to read Caribbean literature. So she has a book club, the RunWrightReadsBookclub, and she picks 12 books from Caribbean authors or authors with a Caribbean heritage. So in February, and I'm reading along I think I picked 8 or 9 of the books. And the book for February was by a debut novel by Jasmine Seeley, The Island of Forgetting. Seeley is from Barbados, now living in Canada. So she is a Caribbean author living in another country. But the book is set in the island is Barbados. I really, really enjoyed this book, and I thought for a debut, for a first book, it was really, really well done. I'm not sure how to explain it, because if I say it's a retelling, a lot of you might roll your eyes and another retelling. It's not your typical retelling, but if you look at the multi-generational family history that is at the center of this book. It starts in 1962, I think. Yeah, and then it goes all the way up to 2018. So it's multi-generational, especially the parent-child relationship, brothers. And if you look at the names, you will see that one person is called Atlas, then you have Calypso, you have Zeus, he's called Zet, you will have Kronos. So it is this, she uses the family story or part of the family story of Greek myth to kind of form the basis for this family. And it's not a gadget. At the same time, it's not a proper, and I don't mean that in a negative way, but it's not a proper retelling. It is the family story of these people living in Barbados, starting with the grandfather and his brother Kronos, and then going all the way up to Nautilus, who is the present day 2018 sun. But she picked certain characters from Greek myth, and for me, this really enhanced the story. So it's not a gadget. It's not, oh, I will want to tell the family story of this family in Barbados, multi-generational, and I'm just going to pick names from Greek myth to make it more interesting. But it's hard to explain if you haven't read it. So my advice would be just read it, because I thought it was really, really good. It did, let's say the first 80% were maybe just a little bit better than the end. I felt the author had a little bit of a difficulty to wrapping it up, but then again, it was a debut novel, and it's certainly worth your while. So, The Island of Forgetting by Jasmine Seeley. Thanks to Karen, I read this wonderful book. And the last book that I want to talk to you about that I finished is a nonfiction book that I read together with Kathleen from Kathleen Ann, and that was The Personality Brokers by Merve Emre, who is a Turkish-American author, and it's the strange history of Myers-Briggs and the birth of personality testing. I'm sure, especially if you live in the US, you have encountered the Myers-Briggs. Either you have taken it or if you've heard of it. I don't live in the US, and I've taken it twice. So a lot of people, even outside of the US, will be familiar with the test. I Googled it, and I think last year, over 2 million people all over the world took this famous test. And what the author does here is she gives us the history of the test, and that's fascinating and flabbergasting at the same time, because we have two women, the mother, Myers, and the daughter, who marries, and then so the test is developed by a housewife at her kitchen table who is interested and was obsessed with Carl Jung. And Carl Jung had this idea about, personality categories like introverts and extroverts, even though they mean different things than in the now famous test, or type indicator it's called. So Catherine Briggs started, so the mother's name is Briggs and the daughter's name is Myers. Never mind. But she started developing a questionnaire, and she used it, to type her child, her neighbors. And that all happened in the beginning of the 20th century. And then her daughter also started to work with this. She was after her marriage also a housewife. So it's these two women who had a lot of ambition, and I can appreciate that, and interest in like typing people. And I don't mean typing, but putting them into certain categories, into types. And whoever, if you have ever encountered the Myers-Briggs, in the Myers-Briggs, there are 16 types, whether you're extrovert, introvert, whether you are more sensing or feeling, doesn't really matter. Google it. But I find it, I thought it was fascinating how these women came up with this test and the questions, but also that there is no scientific basis for the questionnaire, for this whole type thing of the Myers-Briggs. There is a little bit of Jung, if you want to call psychology scientific, but the test itself, how they developed it and the questions, it's just some two people who developed that at their kitchen table. And I know Google and Apple, the garage story, that doesn't mean anything. But I found it really fascinating that we believe in those tests, and we might even base decisions on those tests, whether it's the Myers-Briggs or something else. But in the end, it's in fact just something made up at a kitchen table, and you can at least doubt the validity of the outcome. I mean, I'm a test person. Whenever I read something and there's do the test, what kind of orange eater are you? I will do it. I love tests. So don't get me wrong. But it was interesting to see that maybe the origin of one of the most famous tests is less scientific and is a little bit more built on sand than I at least knew. So it was fascinating. And then there are a couple of delays. First of all, I already told you, because of my personal situation at the moment, a couple of books are delayed, and the one I feel most sorry about is this one, Ida B. Wells' The Light of Truth, The Writings of an Anti-Lynching Crusader. This compilation is from 2014, and this was my January and February pick for my 6 classics, and I didn't finish it. I will try to catch up as soon as possible so that I can film a wrap-up. But for all you people who read along with me with the 6 classics, I'm really sorry that I did not finish this book in February. But I will try my best to finish it as soon as possible. And the other delay is not entirely my fault, thank God. Or no, because it's my buddy reader got the flu, and that is Sarah Waters' Tipping the Velvet, which I'm reading with Lisa from Unhinged Woman Book Club. And we were supposed to finish it in February, but we didn't. But as soon as Lisa feels better, and I hope that will be soon, we will pick up the book, and so I will finish it in March. So those are the delayed books and the books I finished. I'm happy to be back, and like I said, I will be back when I can, and I know that you can understand that. But thank you for watching this one. I hope you've enjoyed it. As always, I'm looking forward to your comments, even though I'm behind with comments, which is not unusual for me. But at the moment, I at least have a valid excuse. I will try to catch up in March. But leave a comment if you're so inclined, and I will talk to you all soon in the next one.